series continues over on LouisianaSports.net. In-depth chart. We started on the offensive line, center, guard, tackle, moved out to tight end, and now moving out wide to the wide receivers. Took a long time to write this one, as there's a lot of wide receivers on this roster. But it was fun to write because this LSU receiving core in 2025, I believe, is going to be excellent. I'm lukewarm on the offensive line. I am. That's been pretty obvious, and I think most people are. I am not lukewarm at all on the wide receiver group. I think they're going to be excellent. Absolutely excellent. Now, last year's group was productive. Was it complete? I don't know. Did it have enough variance in its skill set? I don't think so. But Garrett Nussmeier still threw for 4,052 yards last year. That was fifth in the country. He had more completions than any quarterback in the SEC, led second place Quinn Ewers by 40, and Ewers played an extra game over Nussmeier. LSU was sixth in the country in third down conversions. They averaged 30 points per game. It was a good offense that relied heavily on the passing game. We know this. So Kyron Lacey, C.J. Daniels, and then to Aaron Anderson and, Xavion Thomas and whoever was out there, and certainly Mason Taylor had his role as a tight end as well. But it was a good group. But you were very much missing the big play. And I think you get that with this group. In fact, there's nothing that I could look at with this group that I think you're lacking outside of a proven first-team All-American. But Aaron Anderson exploded last year and led LSU in receiving yards and catches. He had over 850 yards and was really good as a possession receiver who stretched the field occasionally. And he's back, and I think he's going to have a great year. And I think he'll be able to play his role even better, which is a guy who's very good in the short and intermediate because they've got vertical threats on the outside. That's certainly Chris Hilton, who we've seen it. He's made 9 catches of 40-plus yards in very limited time in his 4 years. He came in, big play last year against Oklahoma, big play against Baylor. He comes in, he stretches the field. We've talked about it a lot. But Barion Brown does the same thing. He's got elite speed, busts the top off the defense. You're talking about Kentucky's freshman leader in receiving yards. And I think that those two guys add a vertical threat you so desperately needed last year. And in addition to those two guys, you have Nick Anderson, who showed himself to be a vertical threat at 6'3" at Oklahoma 2 years ago. The stats you continue to hear is that he set Oklahoma's freshman touchdown record in receiving. That's a big deal at a place that's just been churning through Heisman quarterbacks. Hurts didn't win a Heisman, but he was awesome. Murray won a Heisman. Mayfield won a Heisman. Bradford won a Heisman. They've been chucking it around for a decade and a half in Norman. And no freshman has caught more touchdowns than Nick Anderson. Now, I'm a little concerned about Nick Anderson's health. Not because I saw him last week on crutches. I didn't. Not because he hasn't had time since his injury last fall to heal. He's had a year. But if you go out in the spring and a guy's got a wrap on his hamstring and he's not going through all the drills, not doing everything that's asked, you have skepticism before we get out there. I will tell you this. When we go out there a week from yesterday to watch the first practice, I am going to the wide receiver group and I'm checking on Nick Anderson. It's the first thing I'm going to do at practice. Because I think he could be the biggest difference maker from the portal class. He's the guy in this receiving core that I look at and I go, that's a number one option. That's a first-round pick. I think he's got that ability. I don't think Aaron Anderson is going to be a first-team All-American, and I don't think he's going to be a first-round pick at 5'8". I think he's going to catch 60 passes for 800 yards. Again, I don't think he's got the ceiling that Anderson does. I don't think Chris Hilton is going to be a number one receiver or a first-round pick in the NFL. I think he's awesome. I think he brings an added dimension to this offense that LSU so desperately needed last year. But I think his biggest trait is his speed, and he's still 6'1". I don't think Barion Brown at 5'11" is going to be the number one option. I don't think he's going to be an NFL team's number one wide receiver. I think he's explosive. I think he's the SEC record holder for single-season kickoff returns for a touchdown. He's returned a kickoff for a touchdown in all 3 of his years at Kentucky. He's the all-time leading freshman receiver at Kentucky. He's our 11th all-time in their history in receiving in 3 years. But I don't think he's number one. Anderson could be a number one NFL wide receiver, I think. He's got that much ability with that frame, speed, catch radius, route running, all of it. And I can sit here in late July and envision you a situation where Nick Anderson catches 1,200 yards worth of balls with 8 touchdowns and is a first-team All-American. I can envision you a scenario where he's not quite healthy and they've got so much depth at wide receiver, he's not even a factor. Like, I can see both ways. But right now, as I evaluate it, I think my opinion is it's closer to the first one. When the portal opened and players started going in and LSU started getting linked to him, he was the first one I looked at and went, oh, yeah, get him. So I'm very excited about that top group. I think LSU's top 3 receivers this year are Nick Anderson, Aaron Anderson, and Chris Hilton. I think those are the top 3 guys. I think Barion Brown is right there in that mix at 4. And then I think you look at a host of others that will play a role as it's presented to them. You got to go to Trey'Dez Green and Bauer Sharp first at tight end. And then does Destin Hill emerge? Like, we have not seen anything from Destin Hill in 4 years of college. Like, he didn't play his first 2 years at Florida State, was away from the team, came in, played a little bit, and then he got hurt, missed basically the entire season last year. Like, he's been out of high school for 4 years, and he's played 1. So I don't know what to expect from him. Xavier Thomas, to me, is down the line as far as wide receiver goes, but there's going to be a role for him as a ball carrier. They're going to get him the ball out of the backfield some. They're going to run him in the jet sweep game. We saw this all spring. It wasn't like one practice, like, oh, there's Xavier Thomas on a jet sweep. Like, all spring long, he was in the backfield working on the running game, and he was motioning into jet sweep action and catching some screens and whatnot. And there's a role for him. It's not a 900-yard receiver. Kyle Parker, little bit limited in what he is based on his size. He's not the fastest guy out there, but he's a good route runner. Hopefully he's back from a couple of injuries. Triceps injury shouldn't be an issue this far removed. You heard it right after the UCLA game. So there are roles for those guys. And then you've got, like, legitimate track stars in Jelani Watkins, Phillip Wright, and Teron Francis, who I don't know that have a role on this team, but, like, as far as ability, with their ability to run is nuts. They're real track fast. I saw some numbers. Teron Francis was the top-ranked wideout in the state in 2025, 6'1", 205. He anchored Edna Carr's 4x100 relay team on the track. And Wright at Destrehan was clocked at a 4.3440, so 4.3 in the 40 at the All-American Bowl showcase. And then he won the 5A regional in the 100 and the 200 on the track. So, yeah, Jelani Watkins, who was, like, blazing fast in track in his first year on the LSU track team, clocked a 6.63 in the 60-meter. That's 7th fastest in school history. So these are guys that are like 6, 7, 8 in your wide receiver, and they're setting track records. So it's an embarrassment of riches for Cortez Hankton. My opinion, I told you, is that those are the top 4 guys, and I expect LSU to be an absolute handful. But what does it always come back to? It's come back to this every discussion we've had on the offense, on Nussmeier, on Trey'Dez Green, on the wide receivers, on Caden Durham or Harlan Berry. Offensive line. If LSU keeps Garrett Nussmeier upright, these guys are going to have a freaking field day on most Saturdays. They just are. Because they've got, like, the short, quick guys that are hard to get in space, like Anderson and Brown. They've got the size and the length in Nick Anderson. They've got the game-changing speed with Hilton and Brown. They've got every piece you could want on this receiving corps, except for a proven first-team All-American coming back. So to me, this is a huge strength of the team. It's a huge part of the identity of the team. And if they're allowed to go out there and do their work, they're going to be a nightmare matchup for a lot of defensive coordinators. Now, that said, if you can't protect Nussmeier and you can't run the ball and the cavalry's coming, then these guys are going to be neutered and they're not going to be effective. But if they can just figure something out to get the ball into space, into these guys' hands, they're going to do a lot of damage for this LSU football team. So that's a look at wide receiver. I've got a deeper dive in terms of the text, who's gone, who's back, who's new. I've got some video and some highlights plugged into the story. So if you have not checked out in-depth chart on louisianasports.net, just go to the LSU Sports tab. They're all right there in order. I've got center, guard, tackle, tight end, and now wide receiver. If you'd like to kind of get a fresher, get a different look or a first look maybe at this LSU football team as we kind of ease out of the summer and into fall camp, it's all there for free on louisianasports.net. Appreciate y'all for checking that out each and every day. Hey, thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.